Hi everybody, it's Christina from Pretty Distressed. In today's video, I am going to be recreating my most popular video here on YouTube. I did this project about 2.5 years ago and it has 2.5 million views, so you guys really liked it. So I wanted to recreate it today using some different products, and I also wanted to update you on what I would do differently. What have I learned in the past 2.5 years that I think would work better today on this project. This is a beginner's project, super easy. It's gonna have a dark Java espresso colored top and a white chalk painted bottom. So if you wanna see how I recreate this look, just keep watching. So for those of you who have not seen this video, here it is right here. This is my Craigslist makeover Java gel chalk paint for beginners tutorial. That has been really popular and has helped me become a YouTuber, and it's been 2.5 years since I did this, so I'm going to be tackling it on this piece today. One thing that has not changed since I did that video 2.5 years ago is I still recommend, if you are a beginner, if you're new to chalk paint, if you're new to refinishing furniture, you need to start small like this. This is a perfect size project for your first piece. I'm going to be cleaning my entire piece today with Dixie Belle White Lightning. This is a very strong soap that has grease cutting power to it. I wear gloves with it because it is a TSP soap. This is different from what I did on that original table because I used mineral spirits to clean the top off of that table. Mineral spirits has a really strong odor and you can't use it with paint. So I had to clean the rest of the piece with soap and water. And this way with the Dixie Belle White Lightning, I can just clean the entire piece with this. I just need to make sure that I rinse it with clean, clear water after I'm done scrubbing it. You want your piece to be completely rinsed off of any of this white lightning, and you want it to be completely dry before you start painting. My top is pretty beat up, so I'm giving it a scuff sand with a fine sandpaper just to rub out some of those imperfections. The stain is super dark and it's going to cover up most of these imperfections and you're not going to see them that much. This is going to kick up some dust, so before we add our stain, you want to grab a tack cloth and remove all that dust. Okay, now I'm ready to stain. This is an oil-based stain, so you definitely want to have some latex or nitrile gloves to protect your hands. I'm using the No Pain Gel Stain in Espresso. This is the darkest color that it comes in, and I'm going to be using one of their applicator pads to apply it today. This is a very thick stain. It's very pigmented, and you can use it over raw wood, but it's also formulated where you can use it over existing wood like this, where you don't have to strip it back. So I'm just giving it a big stir and getting some on my applicator pad, and I'm gonna run it from side to side, following the grain of my wood. This is different than the way I applied my gel stain in my first video. I used one of those foam brushes from the hardware store, and you could use that here with the No Pain Gel Stain. I just prefer these applicator pads. I think that the stain goes on a lot smoother and you're gonna see less streaks this way. I'm also applying it a lot thinner than I did in that first video. When you apply gel stain that thick, it is going to take forever to dry. I think I had to wait 48 hours or more in between coats. And when you do multiple thin coats like this with the gel stain, you're only going to have to wait 24 hours in between coats. I know that's still a really long time to wait, but this is an oil-based product. You're saving time by not stripping the finish off completely. So you're just going to have to be patient and find other things to do while your coats are drying. So like I said, I'm gonna let this dry for 24 hours. As you can see, my coverage is not as thick as that previous video where I painted it on really thick. So here I am 24 hours later. I'm gonna use the same applicator pad, but I'm gonna use a different side of it. It's really difficult to clean oil-based products out of applicators, and I usually end up just throwing them away. When you're letting them dry, definitely let them sit outside because they are flammable. Read all your warnings and instructions on your can. That's always an important step when you're working with any paint or oil-based product. So I'm putting this coat on, the second coat on, the same way the first coat went on. Again, I'm doing it pretty thin because I know I'm probably gonna have to do a third coat. So I'm gonna get this coat on and again, let it dry for 24 hours and come back and see what my coverage looks like. So this is actually looking pretty good, and because I went with the wood grain, it almost has like this wood grain effect to it, but I wanted mine really dark like my original one that I did, so I waited another 24 hours, and this is my third and final coat. And by my third coat, I found that putting it in a little paint rolling pan like that was a way better way to get an even application of the gel stain on the applicator pad, so I would definitely recommend doing that. So here's my third coat going on just the way the first and the second did. So just remember, you want to do 24 hours in between each of these coats. I know that's a long time to have to wait, but it's definitely worth it. I want to note too that the gel stain did not fix all the nicks and dings, but it's so dark and rich that it does cover up a lot of those imperfections. Once you get this third coat on, it is going to have to dry for 3 to 5 days before you can top coat it, and I will tell you why when we get to top coating. But here I am 3 days later, and I am just protecting my tabletop and preparing my piece to chalk paint. So I am removing my hardware because I know I want to replace that. So I need to fill these holes. I'm going to use Dixie Belle Mud in white. Since I'm going to be painting my piece in white, you just apply this, fill the holes, let it dry for a couple of hours, and then come back in. I'm using a fine sanding pad from Surf Prep and just smoothing everything out before I paint. So just like in the other video, I'm going to be painting my base white for that really traditional classic look, and I'm using fluff. Dixie Belle has 4 whites: cotton, fluff, drop cloth, and buttercream. And fluff is kind of that perfect neutral white. It's not super bright white like cotton. It just has a little bit of interest to it, but not really a lot of yellow tones in it. I'm going to be painting my piece with the synthetic angled mini. I used an angle brush in my last video, but I used a natural bristle brush. I used to think that you could only use a natural bristle brush with chalk paint, but now I know better. You can use synthetic brushes with chalk-like paints and get beautiful results. I'm still going to water out my paint like I always do, and I'm still going to spray my brush because I just like to do that. It's a preference thing. If you are new to my channel and you don't know what chalk paint is, you can paint over an existing finish like this without having to strip your finish back or prime it or anything. This paint's designed to go right over a finish like this and give you amazing coverage. And the thing that's different about Dixie Belle paint is that it is self-leveling, so I'm having to work a lot less at getting this finish smooth because this paint is going to level out on its own, and the fact that I'm using this synthetic brush is also giving me a smoother finish opposed to what I did in my original video. Some things haven't changed though. You still need to watch out for drip marks. That's your number one job when you are painting. Make sure you're smoothing those out as you go. If you miss some drip marks, it's okay. Once your paint is dry, about anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours, just check that it's nice and chalky to the feel. You can go in with a really fine sandpaper and smooth out any of those imperfections and just wipe off the dust before you start coat number 2. And this paint can paint over metal too. As you can see, I have little metal feet here that I decided to paint. So here I am just applying the second coat. There's not much to it. It's just the same process as I did with the first coat. Sometimes with whites, you can have to do up to 3 to 4 coats depending on how dark your original piece is. This piece was pretty light, and Dixie Belle whites are really known for their good coverage, so I only ended up doing 2 coats on this piece. The reason I love an angle brush so much is that it's really versatile. It can do flat surfaces like this, and then it can help you get into details and tight corners too. This brush, when I clean it off, I'm actually going to be able to use it on my top coat as well. So now all my paint is dry and my top has been dry for 3 days. So I'm going to be able to top coat it. I'm using Dixie Belle Clear Coat in flat because I thought this would be most similar to what I used in my original video. And like I said, I'm using the angled mini. It's just been cleaned. All my paint is cleaned off. It is still damp, and I like to apply my top coat with my brush still damp. Just make sure all the water's wrung out and it's not dripping, and you definitely want to dust your surface off again before we start top coating so we don't get lint and all those little guys stuck in there. You don't want to overload your brush with top coat. Just stick the very tip of the bristles in, and I always wipe off the excess on the side. And then I'm just applying this in the same direction that I did the gel stain, and so I'm following the grain here. And you may have to do a back and forth motion, that's fine. Just once you get your first initial top coat on, I like to do long strokes all the way across the top so I don't have stop start motions. This is different than the way I applied the top coat in my original video. I used one of those foam brushes again, and you could still use a foam brush. I just find with these Dixie Belle top coats that I like using a synthetic brush better, or their blue sponge, which I'm going to talk about later when I go to do the second coat. So here it's just really easy. You're just painting this on. It goes on milky white like this, but it's going to dry down really flat and clear. So just super simple. You're just brushing this on back and forth, and again smoothing out any of those brush strokes with one long stroke at the end. Once you get your top coated, go around all the edges and smooth out any of the drip marks you created. And you also want to protect the sides too. I did a fun time lapse to show you guys how this dries down flat and really levels out as it dries. The awesome thing about this top coat is that it is meant to go over paint, and it's not going to yellow your paint. With the previous video that I did, you're really not supposed to use that top coat over paint. You can, but there's no guarantee that it won't yellow. But Dixie Belle has formulated this top coat to really work well with their paint, and I have used it many, many times, as you guys know, on my videos. It looks like wax, but it goes on super easy. You just have to let it dry about 2 hours in between coats. And I typically do not sand in between coats, and you can do up to 3 depending on how much protection you want. This is the part where I'm pulling an audible. I'm actually going to do my additional coats on my top with gator hide. This is their most protective finish, and it is a little bit more shiny, but I found that when this dried down, it was too flat for this gel stain, which I know it's crazy that I'm saying something is too flat for me, but it's just too flat for the stain, and I knew gator hide was going to protect it really well. So to prep this, I did a light sanding with a super fine rad pad, and then I'm just getting the dust off with a tack cloth before I go in with my gator hide. I'm going to be using the sponge. I like to apply this top coat with the sponge. It just takes out all the streaks, and you can't really see, I'm out of frame here, but I gave it a couple of squirts with my mister. I like to have my sponge damp before I apply my gator hide, and I'm just going back and forth with really smooth, light pressure, just making sure I'm getting product down and not stopping in the middle. Again, doing that full stroke all the way across the table. This gator hide gives amazing coverage, and it gives amazing durability. If you have not seen my battle of the top coats, this performed very well on there, so you definitely need to check out that video. If you wanted to use gator hide on your whole piece, on your paint too, you could definitely use that. You can apply the gator hide with the brush too if you didn't want to buy the sponge. So you have a lot of options here. I ended up doing 3 coats on the top, and like I said, I would recommend doing the top for anybody in gator hide. And the great thing is that these top coats come in really little jars, so you could do the whole thing in gator hide, or you could do the base in flat and do the top in gator hide. It's really up to you, but I love the way that the clear coat flat looks on the paint, so I did do an additional coat of the clear coat on my paint. So 2 coats on the base and 3 coats on the top. I hope that's not too confusing for you guys. And just like my other piece, I'm updating my hardware because I think that makes a big difference. This time I actually filled my holes, and I'm measuring a little bit better. I've been called out that this pull was a little crooked, but this one's straight. I made sure it was level. So just to remind you, here is what we started off with, this little end table that needed some love, and here it is all made over using the techniques from my most popular tutorial. What do you guys think? Do they look alike? So have you tried my other video out? Do you think this one looks easier? Do you want to attempt this one? What do you think? I want to know all the thoughts. Let me know down below. I still love this look. It's really classic, and you can dress it up a bunch of different ways. You could do traditional, farmhouse. You have a bunch of options. Don't wanna be shy. Thank you guys for joining me for today's video. I had a lot of fun with this one, recreating this look that means so much to me. Thank you guys for being here as always, and I will see you guys next time.